What's up, everybody? I've been working on this project for a couple of months now, on and off, just as I've had time when it wasn't raining or wasn't 100 degrees outside. So I thought I'd take a few minutes, show you what all I've got done so far and what's left to do. So let me get your camera turned around here and we'll get started. All right, she started out as a 1986, I believe, Winter bass boat, 18 foot. Now, if you don't know, Winter Boats was a company, the engineers, or a few engineers that worked for Ranger in the 80s, got fed up with Ranger and decided to start their own company. That says WRT 8556, so maybe this is an 85 model. I think I said 86 earlier, but must be an 85. So that is how Winter Boats came about. Some guys quit working for Ranger, started making their own boats. As you can see, it very, very closely resembles the 80s model Ranger boats in shape and color and scheme. Anyway, so my dad bought this boat 1 year old, and would have been 86 or 87, from a guy who bought it brand new. He tournament fished out of it for 1 year. My dad bought it and we've had it ever since. A couple of years ago, he bought a newer boat, and since I had a bass boat at the time, he gave this one to my brother-in-law, who in turn let it sit outside and pretty much ruin. He did work on the motor some and get the motor going, but then he let it sit for like a year and a half uncovered under some pecan trees, and you know what happens when you let a boat just sit. So I brought it home and decided to try and clean it up and kind of try and restore it back to its former glory. I had plans to wet sand and restore the gel coat, to the top cap, get it back running, get it looking good, do all new carpet, and fish out of it, just for nostalgia reasons, because it was my dad's boat. Anyway, I played with the motor. It was kind of gummed up. It didn't want to start. It had problems to begin with. It didn't really want to run even when he had it. It didn't want to run right, my brother-in-law, that is. So the more I got into it, the more problems I found. Some of the floor was rotten. The thing about these Winter boats is the deck is all fiberglass. So it's all fiberglass coated. There's wood underneath. So it's wood construction with a fiberglass coating. So you wouldn't think that you would have problems with rot since it's all completely covered with fiberglass. But there was a spot under the console that was not very well covered for some reason, and just because of the wet carpet and sitting for so long, the whole floor, and I'll show you this in a minute when I get to it, there under the deck was rotten, and there were some other places that were rotten. A bunch of the lids were starting to rot. So the problems kept coming and kept coming and kept coming. So I decided that I would sell the motor for whatever I could get for it. A guy that needed the foot off of it for his motor ended up buying it, so he was gonna take the foot and the lower unit and put it on his motor that did run but had a messed up lower unit. So it all worked out. He got a lower unit and I got a little cash to put back into the boat. So we'll start at the front here and work towards the back. So I completely rewired it and put new bulbs in the brake lights if they didn't work. I stripped all the old wiring. I used this shielded wire here. There's 2 wires in each cable, so I had to use 2. And then I got a ground wire there. So this is shielded. So it's not just naked wire or just single shielded wire running from the back. It's double shielded. So that'll offer a little bit extra protection to grime and wear over time. So it may last a little longer this time. Standard 4-pin plug. I got plenty of tail there that can be zip tied up. I just, you know, it's always better to have a little extra than not enough. Old school jack, I haven't replaced that yet. I plan to, mainly for the fact that I'm lazy and it takes like 12 minutes to run that jack all the way up when you're hooking it to your truck, and it's just a pain. So I'm probably going to replace that with a swivel jack at some point. But, you know, it's functional and it does its job, so I didn't want to spend the money on it. The hand winch was all rusted and messed up, and the handle was broken. So since this is a fairly heavy boat and it's not going to have a motor for loading, I was going to buy one of those double geared winches, like the 2-speed hand winches, but they were like 90 bucks at Academy, and the electric boat winch at Academy was only 60 bucks. And I was like, well, why in the world would I pay 90 for a hand winch when I can get an electric for 60? So I was going to go that route. Well, then my dad had this extra ATV winch that came from Tractor Supply laying around. We had gotten it to put on his buggy, and the holes didn't line up with the mountain plate, and he ended up just getting a better winch that came with the mountain plate for his buggy. And I took this one back and I thought, well, hey, I'll just slap it on the front of the trailer here. So that's what I did. I got just this little Tractor Supply winch mounted to the front. It ought to come in very handy when trying to load the boat with no motor. Obviously, I could just winch it back up on the trailer. I got a little 4-wheeler battery just kind of mounted to the front there. I've got to get my welder and some scrap out and make a little box for it to sit in. I just got it kind of metal banded to the front of the trailer right this second to keep it from falling off. But I am going to build me a box when I have a little extra time. Replace the bow roller. It was all rotten and coming apart. Y'all are familiar with that if you've had a boat. I pulled all the old nylon rope that was rotten out of this rub rail and replaced it with some new nylon rope. I was going to do rubber, but the rubber insert that you can buy to put in here is really expensive. It would have cost a couple $100, I think, to get enough of it to go all the way around this boat. And this was 100 foot of like 3/8 nylon rope that I paid like 10 or 15 bucks for, and it was enough to go all the way around the boat. Maybe it was only 50 feet. I can't remember. But either way, I didn't pay very much for it, and it was exactly the right size, and I got it tucked in there. And I'll show you again when we get to the back how that's fastened. This is a trolling motor that my dad purchased in like 1987. It's an Eagle, and man, the thing still works. It was a 1224, so it can be run on 12 volt or 24 volt with the flip of a switch. So you got 12 volt, 24 volt, and then off. So either or, forward and reverse, and high, medium, and low, or high, off, and low. I can't really remember. But anyway, the thing still works. So I put it back on here. My brother-in-law had taken it off and put something else on it, but he wanted his trolling motor back that was on it. So I took it off, gave it back to him, and I put the old Bird back on. She still works, so I'm gonna use her. I did have to replace the foot switch. I gotta be honest with you though, I got this one from Academy and it's pretty crappy. So I don't think it's gonna last very long. It's cheap. I had to beat on it to even get it to work. So I don't know that it's gonna work for long, but it's there for now. I pulled all the switches out of the little front panel here because most of them didn't work anymore and they're really irrelevant. Like for motor trim and live well aerators, and I'm not going to use a live well. So I pulled all those and I put a little piece of wood behind and painted it and sealed it, so just to keep wasp and stuff from getting up in the bow of the boat and building. I did rerun the power and transducer wires here for the Lowrance X5 fish finders. They're from like the late 80s, early 90s. They're black and white, but you know what? They work, and this is going to be a pond boat, so they show depth and water temperature, and they will alert they will show fish. It just shows up as dots on the screen. But you know what? For a pond boat, that's more than acceptable. Moving on down here, as you can see, I pulled all the carpet out, what was left of it anyway. It was rotten. So I pulled the carpet out and I painted over the fiberglass. This is called Tough Coat deck coating. It's a marine grade paint. It's very, very thick, and it has this adhesive already in it. Maybe you can, you can kind of see the little specks of it. Did I say adhesive? I don't know why I said adhesive. Anyway, I don't know if it's sand or like little glass beads or exactly what's in it, but it's already mixed into paint, so when you paint it, it's like a non-skid surface. Maybe that's what I was trying to say. I pulled the carpet off the lids. This one you see is looking pretty rough. I tried to wood putty and Bondo over the top of the wood. All these lids, the deck lids, are all fiberglass bottomed, but they had a wood laminate top. I don't know why they didn't just make the whole thing out of fiberglass. It doesn't seem like a waste to me to build a box lid out of fiberglass underneath and then just put a piece of wood laminate on the top. I don't know why they'd have done that. Maybe it was cheaper, but that's what they did. You can see the lids are fiberglass underneath, but they had a wood laminate on top. That one you can see looks a little better because I coated it good with wood putty and like a filler, sanded it smooth and then painted it, as opposed to this one I didn't. I just painted, and it's the wood laminate there's looking pretty rough. So I'm probably gonna have to redo that one. I did the box lid over there, the rod box lid, the same way. I coated it good with like a filler and sanded it before I painted it. Seat pedestal, I pulled it out and cleaned all around it and painted it too, just so that it would match. It's just like a cast aluminum piece. I painted it to match. So this was a front live well. Dad never used it, so it's kind of blocked off. We used it for storage. We never used it for a live well. So it's just storage. That's storage. That's your rod box. I like this little area here. I guess it's so you can put your tackle there, but a cooler fits perfectly in there. I'll show you a little better from the other side when we walk around. But a cooler fits perfectly there. I did pull all this wood trim off, sanded it, cleaned it up, and re-stained it. I got a little paint on it there when I was messing around. But anyway, so I'm gonna be putting my cooler right here, fill it up with ice, and I can just throw my fish over in the cooler on ice. This boat had a stereo system. Obviously none of it worked. I pulled the speakers, plugged off the holes with some wood, sealed them up, painted over them. As you can see, the leaves are everywhere. Floor drain, I took the seats out. I don't know if I'm gonna put seats back in it. Their seats are kind of irrelevant down there. I think I'm just gonna build some lids to go where the seats were, so that I can use the under seat storage as storage, but still keep it dry with the lid. So I've got to build some lids for that. Got a cup holder over there, cup holder here. I did put the armrest back in just because. I've still got to pull all this. It looks pretty bad. Obviously none of the gauges are relevant anymore. So I've got to pull all that, and I'm just gonna cover that with a nice piece of flat wood laminate, or like maybe some laminate countertop if I can get my hands on it. Just something to kind of cover that back up and just make it look a little better. I may mount something there. Maybe if I do another graph for someone that's fishing in the back, to be able to see the other graph, I may end up just mounting it there or something. I don't know. There's not really much you can do with it. I did put the rails back on just to help you getting in and out of the boat. Tires are pretty good. Dad had put brand new heavy duty tires on it, so they're in pretty good shape. I painted the top of the steps to the trailer with that same Tough Coat, just to make them non-skid, skid resistant. You can see my wire there that I ran for the new lights. I didn't pull the carpet off of these two boxes, the lids, because the carpet was still in fairly decent shape. That's probably going to come back to haunt me because I know the carpet's going to hold water, and the wood laminate underneath is just going to end up looking like that lid up there. So I need to take these back off, take them in the shop, and pull the carpet off, pull these latches off. You can see up there where I just filled in the hole with the wood block and sanded it and made it smooth, and then painted over it. I made these new little pulls out of some scrap leather that I had. They're just screwed in on the side. It's got pretty good sized storage boxes back here. Same thing, this was the live well. It's pretty nasty. It's a lot cleaner than it was though. It's just gonna end up being storage. I may fill it up with ice and use it to keep my fish in as opposed to the cooler. That way I can keep drinks in the cooler, cold water and Gatorade and whatnot. And that way as the ice melts, I can pull the plug and drain it when we're done. So I may end up using the live well, but not as an aerated live well. Just fill it up with ice and throw the fish on it. This is gonna be like the ultimate crappie fishing boat, catfish, you know, pond boat. I'll bass fish out of it. I love to bass fish. That's what I do the most. But man, crappie's just so good to eat that I was kind of more going that way with it. I pulled these little pieces off, refinished them. Obviously, I screwed up and got some paint on them. I was painting the deck lid, but I should be able to knock it off with the sander and put some new finish, some new sealer back on them again. This lid, the back deck lid here, was completely rotten. So I ended up having to get some plywood and rebuild it because it was just too far gone. As you can see, I made me some little notes there, what wires I was using that correspond from the back to the front, color coded. I got my battery mounted in there. I'm just going with one 12-volt battery right now since the trolling motor will run off 12-volt. This is a heavy boat, but with no motor hanging off the back. I think that one 12-volt battery will be fine as long as I don't get in like a really, really strong wind. If I find out 12 volts not enough, I'll get another battery and we'll wire it up and do 24-volt. Fuel tanks, I left them in here. They've got a little bit of old fuel in them. I'm just gonna let that sit. I may drain them one day and fill them up with a little bit of water. So that way if I'm fishing by myself, I've got a little bit of extra weight in the back of the boat to help with counterbalance. I cleaned up some of the wiring, got it labeled. You can see I put green tape around them. So those are my battery cables that run up to the trolling motor. So I wrapped the two that I need with green tape here, and then I hooked them up and through process of elimination, matched them with the two at the front, wrapped green tape around them. So I know, okay, hook up green back here, use green up front, and we're good to go. So that lid turned out pretty nice. It's just one piece of 3/4 inch plywood. Cut it, actually it's two pieces. I used one piece of wood, but I cut out two patterns from the old lid, used the old lid to make the pattern, cut out two of them, glued them together, put some finish nails in from the underside to kind of help, and then put some hinges on there so that it opens from the back. Since the motor's gone, I needed some kind of rudder system. So I left the jack plate on, and I've got just a little homemade, I had some treated lumber from when we built the deck. So I've just got some makeshift rudders bolted up back here just to kind of help catch water. If they don't work, I'll end up coming up with something else. But those are 6-inch boards, and there's two of them. They're gonna hang below the water line just fine. I think they'll work. Like I said, if they don't, I may have to turn a piece 90 degrees and let it stick out so that it catches more water and holds the back of the boat a little better. Fuel line's still on here. I need to take that off and just plug it so that it's not just all hanging out there. One thing I did do was this was the tilt switch, and this was like this was a fuse. So I ended up putting this switch in here, and I wired it up to a bilge pump. So I put a new bilge pump in the bottom because the bilge wasn't working. So I put a new bilge in the bottom and wired it up to this switch here so that I can cut it on, and if I get caught in the rain or whatever, I can still I still have a functional bilge. And then I put this switch back in here too, so that I could use it for lights or whatever. So I do have a functional bilge. That's where the cables came out. I just made these little plastic caps and capped it off. Fuel there, obviously not being used. So there you can see that whole section of floor was rotten. I mean, just slap eat up rotten. So I cut it all out, got all of the rotten wood out. I did see some termites, so they weren't helping the matter. So I filled that entire hull of the boat on that side with termite poison. It's a foam that you can spray up in something, and then it expands and it's poison and it kills termites. So I filled that whole side of the hull with that termite killing foam, and then once it, it just kind of dies, it evaporates. And so once it evaporated, I filled the hole that I had created by removing all the rotten wood with just that expanding spray foam like you see at the hardware store, because I did have to remove some of the foam that was in the hull with the rotten wood, and the termites had kind of built nests down in the foam. So I removed a lot of it to make sure I got down to where they had been living, to fill up with the termite poison. So I covered it with some plywood, sealed it, painted over it, screwed it down. So it should help keep the rest of the boat from rotting, or at least I hope it does. Rod box, it's small, but you can fill it up with rods as long as you can get them in there and get them back out. But I don't know that I'll be using it very much. There you can see the cooler slot a little better. Again, I don't know that that's what it's for, but it works perfect. You can sit your cooler there. Anyway, I'm hoping that she is going to turn out to be a really awesome pond boat. I don't see why not, as long as it floats, and it should. I think it's going to be a great pond boat. It's 18 foot long, plenty of space to roll around. You could fish 3 people out of it really easy, comfortably, and probably not hook each other in the head. Anyway, I can't wait to get it on the water and catch some fish. Thank you all for watching. Like the video if you enjoyed it. Leave some comments below. Tell me what you would do if it was your pond boat, what you would add, what you would have done different. Any suggestions for what would make it better. Obviously going to 24 volt for the trolling motor is going to make it better. But yeah, anything that I didn't mention that you think would be a good idea, drop me a comment and let me know. I'm open to suggestions, anything that'll make it even better than it is. But I believe I've got the makings of the perfect pond boat here. Thank you all for watching.